We are back and we are live. It is Fight IQ presented by RotoWire for UFC 231. As Max Holloway would say, it is the fighter's fight card. The main event is official. It looks like we're actually going to see it. Max Blessed Holloway taking on Brian T-City Ortega for the UFC Featherweight Championship. Our co-main event is for the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship. Valentina Shevchenko taking on Joanna Jędrzejczyk. We are here, guys. Fight IQ for UFC 231. I am your host, Daily Fantasy Sniper, the analyst of Fight IQ. Chris Olsen, Joe Sunsu. Guys, I know you're as pumped up for this card as I am. A lot of great stuff to talk about. Let's start with this. Chris, what is the one fight you're looking forward to the most on this card, but you cannot say the main event?
Oh, well, there's a couple. I'm actually
just pick one.
I'm looking forward to the first fight of the night. I guess I'm really looking forward to Joanna and Shevchenko, of course. I'll say, just to sort of give us a middle of the road fight here, I'll say Gilbert Burns OAM. That's an intriguing one for me.
Joe, how about for you?
Cláudia Gadelha. No, just kidding. I will say Gunny versus Cowboy Oliveira.
You stole mine. That was mine. My backup to that, Thiago might head to Santos and Jimi Manuwa.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Main event is a lot of good main card. A lot of good fights on this card. Fight IQ, we're here to break this down with a DraftKings perspective. Fight IQ brought to you by RotoWire. Make sure to go to rotowire.com/free, 10-day free trial to all their premium content. No credit card required. They have daily fantasy. They have season long. MMA, obviously, NFL, NBA, all the good stuff. Make sure and check it out there. You can find all of us on Twitter to harass us at the DFS Sniper with one S. Joe is at Sunsu. Chris is at Real Chris Olsen. Love usually giving him crap, but we're actually on the same page for a lot of fights this week.
I hate being I actually love being the odd man out on some of these
weird card. It's a weird card.
It is a really weird card. Make sure you subscribe to the RotoWire MMA feed on iTunes. If you're not watching us live on YouTube, and if you are, thank you. Record these about 8 o'clock on Fridays. Hit us up in chat with questions. I will pepper them at these guys. It has been fun, getting a lot of support from the community, liking the video, sharing it, commenting, saying we should be unserious. I appreciate all that stuff. And, you know, we got our first little barb in here as it looks like someone says that Joe is looking forward to Chase Sherman against Tyson Pedro, which please God, let that fight happen. I know they're in different weight classes.
Yeah, that fight, by the way, I got a great sponsor for that fight. The good people at Mensa can sponsor that fight, you know?
So fun times like that in chat. Guys who are in there, keep it coming. Let's get to the fights. Leading off the card, Aleksandar Rakić, 9,500, taking on Devin Clark at 6,700. Sorry, Joe, I'm excited to get to this fight.
Ooh.
Rakić minus 545. Clark, the comeback is plus 465. Rakić, the big hype prospect here. I will say he's the most expensive fighter on the card. We need to pump our brakes just a little bit on the guy. Yeah, he took down Justin Ledet. I'm pretty sure Joe could take down Justin Ledet. Ledet is a boxer. Not good takedown defense. Not that good. Before that, his UFC debut was against Franco Marbojoso. Good win there. Looked good in that fight. Do think he's an up-and-coming prospect, but Devin Clark is a really interesting guy to give him, you know, grinding style, grappling, but that's what Clark has. He's athletic, and he's going to try and make this fight dirty. Ultimately, I do think that Rakić is too athletic, too technical for him. I just think minus 500 is a little bit wide here. He's going to need a finish. Clark has shown he got knocked out by Alexander Nicholson. Not the best, but in general, he's going to try and close distance. And if he does it through at least the first round, make this a grimy type of fight. You know, Rakić hasn't put anybody out of there early, hasn't starched him. I don't know if Rakić is going to pay off his value. I think he's relatively safe, but I don't hate Clark as a desperation punt. Well, I kind of do just because Joanna's on this card. If Joanna wasn't on this card, I'd be okay punting with Clark. I don't think you need him, but and I'll also mix in a little bit just because Rakić is getting a lot of hype, and I don't know. I think the lines are a little bit too wide for me, but ultimately I'm going to take Aleksandar Rakić in this one. Joe, we'll start with you this week.
Okay, so I think this line is right, if not wide enough. And let me go into a small preamble here. You know, one of the things I really like about the UK, there's a couple of things. The UK is there are more degenerate gamblers per capita than I think anywhere else in the world. They love TV. They can't be bothered by things like exercise or going out. And the other thing is my boy, Adam Newsom. Adam Newsom is having a bromance with Aleksandar Rakić.
I heard that.
I initially kind of just said, oh, okay, you know, like a little starstruck Newsom here. But, you know, one of the things that Newsom mentioned on his pod in all seriousness, and he actually tipped us off to Rakić before the last fight. And had we all paid better attention, we could have made serious coinage by following his play on Rakić in his last fight. But apparently, you know, Rakić has done some wrestling with the Dagestanis. And I don't know. I mean, Clark could be a Division III junior college wrestling champion. Give me a Dagestani wrestler any day. So I am going to say that aside from having a massive size advantage over Devin Clark, and the fact that I honestly don't think much about Clark as an MMA fighter, and he is at a severe striking disadvantage, I do not know that Clark will have any success taking Rakić down. Play one share of Clark or two share of Clark so if you're mass entering into GPPs. But I like Rakić here. My only concern is he doesn't get an early finish, in which case that 9.5K may be hard to pay off, especially if you need 12X to win a GPP. So that's my only cautionary tale, but I do think the line is probably right. And I think Devin Clark will be his next fight will be in the PFL.
Well, he did just beat, what's his name? Mike Rodriguez, who... Yeah,
oh, here's the other thing. How do you take a guy down that many times and get a grand total of like 2 advances? I mean, so you could take the guy down, but you got no control.
I'm just worried about... You had on my biggest worry for DraftKings is him paying off the salary, right. and especially when we're going to talk about later. I mean, you mentioned in the open, Cláudia Gadelha is $300 cheaper.
Yep.
And it's hard for me to slam in some Rakić when there aren't too many dogs I'm looking to play, especially when I had one I was interested in that I convinced you of earlier.
I know you brought me over the fence, and now we got Spencer, who I can't get up behind. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. Chris, you've been awful quiet over there. Are you going to pick?
Yeah. Well, I've just been.
Please pick Devin Clark.
I've just been loading my counter argument here because I mean, as far as the fight, I'm picking Rakić, but I got to respond to some of what Joe said here. I mean, okay, he's training with Dagestanis. Luis Pena was wrestling with Khabib before his last fight. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. Clark is probably going to be the better wrestler here. Okay, having said that, you know, I like Rakić a lot. I picked him in that fight against Ledet just because I thought, you know, he had a much deeper skill set. And I think what's interesting about Rakić and that fight was, you know, Ledet was doing some of the right things. He started checking kicks. He started going for his own takedowns. It didn't matter. Rakić was just a step ahead the entire time. He's a very physical guy. He's quick. He's a decent counter fighter. But one of my concerns about him is he leaves his chin up in the air sometimes. He also, as far as his kicking game, it's very active, but his hands aren't quite so active. He's more of a one shot at a time with his hands, and I think that Clark's going to have some opportunity to get in on his hips here. We haven't really seen him face a wrestler of any caliber. I mean, of his 2 fights, the better wrestler is probably Bahos, and that doesn't mean a whole lot. So I think it's not that controversial to say that Clark's going to be the best wrestler he's faced. And as you said, Sean, he is a grindy, jam-up kind of wrestler who's always going to be after you. Could it be the case that, you know, because we saw at the weigh-ins he's much bigger. Could it be the case that Rakić is just more physical and can just outstrength him like that? It could be. But I think that you mentioned the his knockout to what's-his-face, Alex Nicholson. He got like a chinny rep after that. You know, he hadn't been knocked out since. So I share your concerns about the price, and I think, look, I like Rakić to win the fight, But as you say, grapplers make money on DK, Sean, and for 6,700, I think it's a guy well worth taking a shot on.
I wish he would get some advances, as Joe would say, but I think we're all pretty much on the same page there. I do want to respond to our guy Cloud in chat, who says Nina and Santos in cash. How much can I swear on a RotoWire pod, Chris?
Just try to keep it to like 4 letter words.
Okay. Well, you are batshit crazy, my friend.
That's more than 4.
Yeah, unless Cláudia is hurt, do not play Nina in cash.
The other fight is a GPP fight, but we will get there. Somebody else in chat says he got schoolyard choked by Blachowicz.
Yeah, he did.
I do think Blachowicz is a little underrated, but not at least people love to hate Blachowicz, and Blachowicz is, I think, back on the sauce and decent. And yeah, I think we're mostly just concerned about the price, and we'll move on from there because we have to talk about Carlos Dhiego Ferreira, 9,200, taking on Kyle Nelson at 7,000. Nelson, 1 week notice replacement. He's a kickboxer. He's beaten up a bunch of cans. I did something interesting. Somebody went, I think it might have been you, Joe, on Twitter, and if not, I'm sorry, said that at least he's beaten guys who have decent records. I went into the records of the guys he has that good record against, and they're all like 0-0. Like every guy he beat basically beat up the tomatoiest of tomato cans. Like it was.
Oh, so you mean the guys that he beat who had good records? Their opponents weren't very good. Yeah, I will admit I did not go that deep.
I was just curious. If you get a second on Tapology, go ahead and click around in there.
I think Tapology was down. It was just down. I don't know.
No, that would be sad.
No, I mean just for a minute. Yeah.
Right. Kyle Nelson is a kickboxer, and that is the one type of style. I liked Ronson in that I thought he would be better from the outside and showed a penchant to stop takedowns. He stopped Kevin Lee takedowns. I wasn't sure how much takedown offense Ferreira had. He only has 11% takedown accuracy in the UFC. That being said, on short notice against a guy who is small for 155, look, I like Ferreira a lot in this spot now. He's aggressive enough. He's willing to fight. I think he can get this fight to the ground eventually. And the second this fight hits the mat, it should be an utter total mismatch. The line on this fight, by the way, which I skipped, Ferreira has odds value now, I believe, minus 450. Come back on Nelson's plus 400. So minus 450 for 9,200. Ferreira for me is in play in all formats. I don't see the hometown upset happening here. So Ferreira went from a guy I wasn't very interested in to a guy I am massively interested in. How about for you, Chris?
Yeah, this is another third stringer opponent, I believe. First it was John McDessie, then it was Ronson, and now we have Kyle. What's his last name?
Nelson.
Kyle Nelson. There you go. My old friend Kyle Nelson. From what I could see, he's a very wild striker, tries to close distance. He can wrestle a little bit. I didn't really see a ton that I liked from him, quite honestly. And Ferreira has got a functional boxing game. He's not very quick, which leaves him open. Well, yeah, I mean that's the nicest thing I could say about it. But I mean that's more than I would certainly say for Nelson's. I mean he can move his head a little bit. He can shoulder roll a little bit. But he can get countered because he's slow and tends to not retract to his position. But I'm really not worried about any of that here. I don't think he hits hard enough. I think Ferreira is going to be the way harder puncher. I just didn't see a bunch that I liked from him. So I'm going to say take Ferreira in all formats. A finish wouldn't shock me at all.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, I was you kind of pushed me over the edge on giving Ronson a shot, and he fit just so nicely with his price tag. And now I'm like, okay, Ferreira is probably one of the. Now, I don't know if it's safe to say he has the highest upside, but he is certainly one of the safest plays. Yeah. I mean, I would certainly lock him in cash. I don't know if he's better than others at his price point or similar for GPPs, but you gotta love him. I mean, you gotta love him in cash. And that's my pick, obviously.
All right, let's move on to someone I know Joe is higher on than Carlos Dhiego Ferreira, and I'm picking him to win, but you got to explain why you're so high on Chad Laprise at 9,100, taking on Dhiego Lima at 7,100. Laprise minus 380, Lima plus 340. Lima has been on 2 seasons of tough. He cannot stop a grappler. He was grappled, by Jesse Taylor. He lost to Yushin Okami recently. 4-fight UFC losing streak anyway. Look, just not very good. Laprise did just get knocked out by Vicente Luque, who I think is an up-and-comer in that division. Also, what worries me a little bit is that he was knocked down by Galor Bafando. Does he have chin issues? He's there to be hit. I'm not sure. It's something worth noting before shoving all your chips in on Chad Laprise. He's been knocked down in 2 straight fights. But Dhiego Lima shouldn't have anything for him. It's not his brother. It's not Douglas Lima. Laprise moves really well side to side. His movement should be too much. I don't think Diego's going to be able to wrestle him. But Laprise, because he's a striker, he's going to need that finish to pay off in GPPs. Obviously, Joe thinks he's really safe. I like him as a play. He's my pick. But, Joe, why do we love Chad Laprise this week?
Look, this is as much a fade of Lima as it is an endorsement of Laprise. I don't look. It's always I always have some trepidation when you have a fighter coming off a knockout. And with that said, Luque is good, is real good, is a lot better than his rank. So I see him as the hometown fighter against a guy that is so fadeable. He should get the finish here. He's much better everywhere. He's more technical. Does he have more upside than CDF? That's the hard thing to say. But he is definitely my pick here. I think he's one of the better GPP plays at the price point. But time will tell.
Chris, are you picking Dhiego Lima?
No, I'm not. And I actually agree with Joe here. I think look, not only is Vicente Luque a much better fighter, but Galor Bafando is at least a much scarier fighter than Dhiego Lima is, a much more powerful one. I think this is going to be one of those rare fights where Laprise is almost going to have every advantage. He's faster. He hits harder. He can wrestle. You already alluded to the fact that Lima has been wrestle mugged in his last 2 fights. I just don't see anything that Lima is going to have for him. I mean, Lima, he can throw a jab, but he generally gets caught throwing these rote combinations. That's what got him knocked out in his last Titan FC fight. He's just slow, and I don't like anything about him. I mean, anybody in chat who likes something, feel free to speak up and maybe we can discuss it. But as far as I'm looking at this right now, I love Chad Laprise. I think he's a guy where you open up the DraftKings app and you look at it, and I think he's a guy you start lineups with, GPP and cash. So I'm in on heavy with Laprise here.
It's tough for me because you got somebody who's going to grapple right near him, but I get it. I do like Chad Laprise as well. Now let's talk underdogs. Let's get to it. Brad Katona, 8,900, taking on Matthew Lopez at 7,300. The line on this fight, as Chris he said he knew I was going to be picking Matt Lopez. It's closed up. Katona's a favorite still, minus 170. Lopez at plus 160. If you flip this line, that's about where I thought this was going to open. I tape studied this fight, one of the first ones I did, of the prelims anyway, and I thought Lopez would be a small favorite. The problem with Lopez is he has got gas tank issues, and I wish somebody would teach him how to check a kick. Katona, well-rounded game. He's 7-0, won the UFC in the Ultimate Fighter, beat Jay Cuccinello, had a back-and-forth fight with Bryce Mitchell on the show. Ultimately, I think Lopez, the better grappler. He's been in there with Rafael Sunset. He's got a win over Johnny Eduardo. Alejandro Perez's last fight, he won the first round handily before he did gas out. That's the worry here for me, is the gas tank, but the price tag is really based on that plus 210-ish line. 7,300, I think he is the best value on the card. He's going to be chalky now because the odds value is creeping up that way. I like Lopez a lot. I think he's got too much wrestling for Katona, is my hunch, and it's a massive step up for Superman. I like Katona. The line and the price is just really threw me off here. So Matt Lopez, one of my favorite dog plays on the card. Chris?
I don't know if we could say it's a massive step up for him. I mean, what's the big win that Matthew Lopez has?
Johnny Eduardo's no joke.
No, okay, fair enough. But I mean, okay, fair enough. I'm not even gonna counter that. I'll just give it to you. But I'm still picking. Yeah, don't get used to it. I'm still picking Katona. I'm still picking Katona because, well, you alluded to some of it. The gassing out issues, the leg kicking issues, which have been a problem for his last 2 fights now. And Katona has a vicious leg kick. We've seen it. And he's just going to be out there bouncing around, moving around. Lopez is a plodding fighter. He's got power. He can throw in combination. But I also think Katona's a decent counter striker. And I think he's going to be faster than Lopez. And all those things together just doesn't – can he take him down? Maybe. But, again, even if he takes him down, if he doesn't finish him, now we have the gassing thing to worry about. So – and also I don't know how much of a committed finisher Matthew Lopez is at this point in his career. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, no, he finished Eduardo. Okay. But I believe that's his only finish in the UFC. I just don't love him. I understand grapplers, and I understand you want to take a shot on a low-cost grappler. That's fine. But as far as where the skill lies here, I think Katona wins the fight.
Joe?
Look, let's be honest. I mean, you don't, again, and if I'm out of line, you'll tell me, I don't think you believe the line is off because you think Matthew Lopez is a good fighter. I think it's more because you think that, he is perhaps slightly better than Katona, or how I look at it, I just don't see Katona as a 5-2 favorite over Matthew Lopez. I mean, I might even be willing to go as far as a pick 'em. I don't have any issue with Katona being a favorite, a small favorite. I just don't see him as a 5-2 favorite here.
Right. I thought the line was going to be about, like I said, flipped, about -150 Lopez is what I was in my head. And I was thinking maybe people will be off of Lopez because he looks so bad gassing, and I'll get him as a small underdog. That was my thought before I opened up 5 dimes. And then I saw plus 235, and I went, that's just give the experience.
I don't think any of us are endorsing the skill set of Matthew Lopez. A couple of narratives here. One is, okay, so Lopez is the wrestling coach for his camp. He should have a wrestling advantage. I don't know if it's as distinct as many people. And I should also say that I have an inherent bias against the well-known camp in Ireland that Katona trains at. I pretty much fade every fighter from Conor McGregor on down coming out of that camp. So, use that when you hear that my pick is Matthew Lopez here. I think, look, I don't, it's not a wild endorsement. I think he fits. The problem is, absent other underdogs at that price point, I fear he is going to be extremely popular. So I don't know if it's that big a secret. I think the narrative is out. I'm picking Matthew Lopez, but a lot of it is a fade of the camp, and just because I don't see Katona as being a 5-2 favorite. So, but it's not with a high level of confidence that I'm picking Matthew Lopez.
All right, Elias Theodorou, 8,200, taking on Eryk, your boy Anders at 8,000. Theodorou, small favorite, still -120. Comeback on Anders is +110. Anders recently had that war with Thiago Santos, who he couldn't even get back to his corner. That was a fun fight. Theodorou, people love to hate on him because of his style. He throws at that leg kick, kind of pitter-patters a little, picks up, really point fights his way to a decision, which people don't like to watch, but it's a way to get wins in the UFC and not take a ton of damage. That being said, he has not looked as good the last few fights, in my opinion, and he didn't dominate Dan Kelly the way I thought he was going to. I did want to really quick pull up something I saw today. from Aaron Bronster tweeted it out. Elias Theodorou's strikes landed in his last 2 fights, it's 6 rounds, 195. Eryk Anders' strikes landed in his entire UFC career, which is 14.5 rounds, so more than double the rounds, 208. So only 13 more, which I thought was really interesting is that as Anders is this action-packed fighter, whereas Theodorou is the boring guy. Yes, Anders has some finish in there. I think he finished Rafael Natal. I think it was at that fight. That was pretty violent and impressive. He also, had a kind of a ground fight against Marcus Perez, who Chris loves. What was worrying to me is the Tim Williams fight.
Oh,
that's the fight that I watch and I go, God, Tim Williams was a round away from beating Eryk Anders, and that kind of stand-up style kind of just out classically struck him, and that's where Anders is going to struggle. He's going to have the physicality advantage. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be more physical and stronger and could grapple him. And that's what he needs to do to win. But Theodorou has been, training mixed martial arts for a much longer time. And Anders, the former college football player, it sets up well for Theodorou to get one of those types of decisions. I will say, though, that Theodorou is slowed down, like I mentioned. And what I think is interesting is that despite what I just told you and Theodorou being my pick to win the fight, I think Anders is by far the better DraftKings play because if he wins, he gets a finish with his power. Maybe he'll learn something in the Santos fight. Or he grapples. And at 8,000, he's the one I'm more willing to take a couple shots on in GPPs because I do think he's that kind of a freak athlete to pull it off. But Theodorou is the pick to win the fight, which is an interesting spot to be in. Joe, how do you have Theodorou and Anders?
Yeah, I don't know that this fight has a whole lot of DraftKings value as a whole. It might be a better fight to bet. I don't think this is a great stylistic matchup for Anders. I'm also concerned, you stole some of my thunder with the Williams fight. I also don't like how slow a starter he is. He is pretty much finish or bust. It's sad to say, but even if Anders ekes out a decision here, I don't know that he'll earn his salary. Just because he's a low output striker, he may go for a takedown or two, although, Theodorou seems to be pretty good with his takedown defense. This is probably a better fight to bet, to actually maybe place a wager on Theodorou. As much as it pains me, because I think this fight is going to probably be a contender for boring fight of the night, along with Chookagian and I am picking Theodorou.
Chris?
I actually agree with basically everything you guys said. The one thing I would point out is that if Anders is gonna spam takedowns like he did against Thiago Santos, he's gonna be in way less danger doing that. He's not gonna eat hard body kicks. He's not gonna have to deal with jiu-jitsu on the ground, getting swept. And I just think I think it might not be as bad of a style matchup. I know that Theodorou likes to move around and come in at weird angles. And the striking stat that you mentioned is funny to me because I want to know if we're talking about strikes or significant strikes, because I don't know how many of those.
Don't get me started on fight metric because they're all significant.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was just thinking about those fall away kicks that Theodorou likes to throw for range that impact so well. But look, if he's going to spam takedowns, we saw Scott Holtzman have success against Theodorou in the last fight. Huh?
Tavares?
No. Who's the last fight for what's his face? The model for Theodorou.
Wasn't it Dan Kelly?
No, Trevor Smith.
Oh.
Wasn't Scott Holtzman.
Trevor Smith. Right.
Trevor Smith.
Same kind of guy though, But he had not only did Smith have good wrestling success in that fight, Theodorou got tired really early. So if Anders is going to press a pace with takedowns, maybe that could be something. Maybe he'll be onto something. And as I say, look, he couldn't make it back to the stool at the end of that fight, gassed out and lost. That was at the end of 3 full hard rounds of mostly grappling from him. And again, against a much more dangerous fighter with a lot more dangerous strikes that he had to weather. I don't think he's going to have to worry about that against Elias Theodorou. So, as I said, I agree with most of what you guys said. I would be a little bit more ready to take a small stab at Anders, but I basically agree that this is a better fight to bet.
All right, guys, we are. I just sent this in our chat, but I'll tell you, we're 30 minutes in, and we've covered like 4 fights.
Well, this is the best part of the year. We could go a little longer.
Yeah, that's all right. Everybody's having a good time in there, right?
You guys ruined my lead-in. Thankfully, we can go fast through this fight because it's Katlyn Chookagian at 8,700 taking on Jessica Eye at 7,500. Katlyn Chookagian minus 195. The comeback on Eye is plus 180. Unless you think Jessica Eye is going to get takedowns on Chookagian, which I don't think will happen. Chookagian is a BJJ brown belt last time I looked. Should have enough get-up game. Range striker. Eye is going to have nothing for that. Boring fight. Chookagian doesn't score well in her wins. If this fight burns me, this fight burns me. Chookagian to win. I have a bet on her, but nothing in DraftKings. Chris?
Yeah, pretty much. And I would say that both of these women don't really score that well in their wins. They're both counter fighters on the feet, which is another way that this could be kind of boring. Eye has a more classical technical boxing style. She probably has a little bit more power. To be clear, none of them have tremendous power, but just out of the two of them, Chookagian likes to use her movement and as I said, counterfight. She throws good straight punches, but I don't know. I mean, I guess if I had to pick one, I would pick Chookagian to be on her bike and outpoint her. But yeah, I'm not going to pay too much attention for this in DraftKings.
Yo.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that Chookagian is the designated backup for AJ Val, which is interesting to me because, and I think we have to do one of these year-end shows, like where we do like forward predictions for 2019, because I truly believe that the next 2-division champ, you want a 2019 hot take in December 2018? I truly believe
Chookagian?
No. Is going to be Jessica Andrade.
Okay.
She's gonna win if Rose Namajunas ever gets off her ass and fights.
Now, hang on. Is it
strawweight, and she's gonna win at 125. Remember, this was the girl who fought at 135.
So what you're telling me is that come early next year, the women are gonna have two-weight champs.
Okay.
I'm actually dead serious.
I do think Andrade wins at 115, and I do think because she's fought as high as 135, she moves up and she will have an epic fight against Val. But anyway, I will pick Chookagian. Blonde Ambition. No, Blonde Ambition is a Madonna album. The Blonde Fighter I will take here. I think this is a fadeable fight on DK. Although it's going to be extremely low owned if you're mass entering GPPs. In case lightning strikes, maybe you want to throw a share in. But I think this is a very fadeable fight.
You guys want to be around for that episode because I really am picking Amanda Nunes to beat Chris Cyborg. So that'll be fun for everyone.
Okay.
Olivier Aubin-Mercier, 8,500, taking on Gilbert Burns at 7,700. Line continues to close. Actually, a little bit of money's coming in on Mercier, but it's only minus 120. Burns plus 110. Both these guys coming off losses. Burns knocked out by Dan Hooker. OAM was grinded out by Alexander Hernandez. Close fight. We have seen OAM slow down in the past. That fight with Anthony Rocco Martin rings a bell where he slowed down in the 3rd round. I still hate saying that guy's name. Burns, to me, this fight hits the mat, has a big BJJ edge. I know OAM's the better grappler, but I believe he's still only a brown belt. He may have just gotten his black belt, but Burns is a 2nd or 3rd degree black belt. I think we'll have the advantage on the feet. I mean, on the mat, excuse me, in terms of submissions, finishing a fight, sweeps, all that stuff. And that's where OAM excels. OAM striking to me is stiff. He's probably still a little better technically because Burns just throws haymakers looking to finish people. That being said, I think that makes Burns an interesting GPP play, especially under that $8,100 mark where we're looking at when there's not a ton to look for. I like Gilbert Burns in this one. I think he has more ways to win this fight, whereas OAM needs to get a decision. So give me Gilbert Burns in this one at 7,700. This one we're starting with Joe.
This is such an interesting fight. It really is. There's obviously some. This is about a pick'em line, I believe, and there's obviously some DK value with Gilbert Burns. And what really makes this fight interesting is that you have, always look for those profile photos where the fighter's in a gi. That really means they're proud of their jiu-jitsu. So you've got Burns that has got a really great jiu-jitsu game, but is actually the inferior grappler. So does that mean that OAM is going to be smart and not go for takedowns? Will he just try to grind them out? On the feet, he's probably slightly better. I don't know that. Maybe it's a toss-up on the feet. I don't know. It's hard to say. OEM looked really good against Dunham, but then Dunham, we all know, was shot. So this is a really interesting fight. I mean, I'm going to pick Burns. I like the value on DK. I think he's going to be relatively high owned because if you're looking for guys, if you're looking for fighters sub 8K that aren't named Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I could see him being very, very popular. So I'm going to pick Burns, but I think this is a really interesting fight.
Chris?
Yeah, I like Burns way more than you guys do. I think you guys are right that who's a more technical striker might be up in the air, but I don't think it's going to matter that much in this fight just because I don't think that OAM is going to be able to take advantage of the holes that Burns is going to leave through his wild striking. I mean, Dan Hooker is a much more seasoned boxer, a much better counterpuncher. I don't think OAM is a counterpuncher. I haven't really seen it to speak of. He gets himself backed up in almost every fight. He's sort of a janky striker, throwing one strike at a time. Maybe occasionally he'll throw a 1-2, but generally it's one strike at a time. And we know that Gilbert Burns is at least a willing wrestler, if not a great one. We know that he will try to get the fight to the ground. Sometimes he'll do it as a response to getting hurt, but sometimes he'll just go for it. And I like that. I mean, in Gilbert Burns, we're talking about a guy who subbed out Charles Oliveira. So he's shown us his MMA jiu-jitsu bona fides here. And I think that as I said, if OAM was a more seasoned striker, and if I thought he was more capable to make Burns pay for his powerful but kind of sloppy striking, I would be a little worried. But since I don't think that, I kind of think Burns is better everywhere as a default, and so I'm going to be on him big here.
Well, but before someone in chat asked, did you say bona fides?
Yeah.
Oh, did you mean bona fides?
It's bona fides. That's how you say that.
Okay.
Can somebody back me up on that in the chat?
I would say bona fides, but
I don't actually know what we're talking about. I zoned out for a second. So
okay.
Joe's trying to grammar police.
No, you said Galore Bafando. That's how you say the guy's name.
Someone in chat tell us whether it's bona fides or bona fides. Thank you.
For what? What are we talking about?
Bona fides, like when you present something that you're good at.
Bona fides.
I would say bona fides, but that's okay. Chris is
There's no plural. It's he's bona fide. He's a bona fide BJJ guy.
Yeah, that's how I.
Bona fide. You can say bona fide.
But you're talking about different things. If you're saying it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Yeah, we got hung up on a tangent here. Go ahead. Next fight.
That's what Fight IQ is good for. We bring you these hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, these grammar questions. Yeah.
I'm going to be posting on Twitter later. That's okay.
Now I get to turn my ire from this conversation to the person in chat who said to play Nina Ansaroff.
Really?
Cláudia Gadelha, 9,300, taking on Nina Ansaroff at 6,900. Cláudia Gadelha, the line on her is minus 310. Comeback on Ansaroff, plus 280. Listen, whoever in chat said that, if you're high on Ansaroff, obviously play who you want, who your gut says, but you should go over the edge because you're going to get a ton of leverage, because Gadelha should take down Ansaroff and beat the snot out of her. I know Ansaroff her partner is Amanda Nunes. That's nice. She hasn't fought a wrestler since Randa Marcos. Marcos just had that single leg. Gadelha is better everywhere. She I believe it was before the Jocelyn Jones-Liebarger fight, was going to retire.
And have a family.
Right, yeah. And she beat Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger. She beat Angela Hill, 2 stand-up strikers. Got by against Randa Marcos. The only reason you would play Ansaroff is you think Gadelha's done, and you saw Esparza hurt her. And I get, Esparza was injured in that fight, and you saw Jessica Andrade, who, as Joe mentioned earlier, it's a beast.
You mean Gadelha was injured in that fight?
Gadelha, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, yes, exactly.
Gadelha was injured in that fight. And she still won it. And Carlos Esparza is a former champ and top 10 easy in the division, probably top 5. Look, Gadelha, by grappling, I don't think Ansaroff could even really hurt her on the feet. She doesn't possess anything to really scare me. Esparza had shown some improvement on the feet pre the Gadelha fight. And look, I love grappler against somebody who I don't think can stop a takedown. She got by Randa Marcos. This is different here. Give me Cláudia Gadelha to smash. It's a matter of, do I want to play Cláudia Gadelha? Do I want to play, who else is in that range? We have Chad Laprise right there. We have, let me read off the names in this little range, because this is the range I think that's going to make or break your night, and Dhiego Ferreira. Those 3, it's in GPP, any one of them could go off for 100 to 110 points, or they all could and break the slate. This range is key. I like Gadelha in that mix. She's the most expensive, but she's my most favorite of the 3.
Let me go first here. Let's switch this up. I'd like to go
Mr. Bonafides. I mean,
I'd like to go first here. I'd like to go first here. So, to your point, Gadelha was hurt going into that fight, right? So she got beat up a little by Esparza, but she was actually hurt going into that fight, for one. She averages about 4 takedowns a fight. I would be disappointed if she didn't get 6 or 7 against Ansaroff.
She subs are quick.
Yeah. Now, there is someone who I respect who has been on quite a roll lately, and I can't say who because he did not give me permission, but who is very high on Gadelha and picks Gadelha as one of his strongest plays. I certainly see Gadelha as being a play in cash. I have yet to decide how much cash I'm playing, but I think she'd be relatively safe. I would be shocked if Ansaroff could come close to finishing Gadelha. You got to love those grappling points. I also think that it won't just be, takedowns a la Devin Clark, that she will get some advances on Ansaroff. So I like Gadelha a bit here. I mean, I think this is a step down for her in competition from Carlos Esparza, and this is a big step up for Ansaroff. So, look, she could wrestle all she wants with Amanda Nunes, but
easy, Joe.
But I just don't know that's well. Come on, I wasn't even thinking in the gutter like you were.
Yes, you were.
Training.
Don't lie to me.
I just don't know that it's going to help her all that much here. Gadelha all day.
Mr. Bonafides.
All right. Well, since I just had my turn, I don't know what's going on, but I guess it's my turn now.
Listen, you're over here in chat trying to give yourself a new nickname, which is not.
No.
I'm 2 times if you want. You could go first.
It's already been established. I'm just trying to keep it going.
He's trying to nickname himself.
You could go first for both 5-round fights. Okay.
He's trying to nickname himself the Beard. That's just not going to happen. Your nickname is Mr. Bonafides.
Yeah. No, I'll take. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll put a poll up on Twitter.
That's the last thing you want from our listeners. You don't want a poll.
Yeah, I know. But we got to pump the brakes a little bit here. Look, you can't just hand wave the fact that Randa Marcos was like what 1 of 9 on those takedown attempts. You can't just say that doesn't mean anything. That's a committed, schooled wrestler that she was able to stop most of her takedowns.
Time out. But you watch the fight, right?
Out.
I'm not even gonna be. I'm gonna have a conversation.
All right.
What this is. You watched the fight. I know you did. How many of those shots? Just my counterpoint to it were single legs.
Yeah, but it's still
Gadelha's going to shoot doubles, which is a big difference. I think it's a different type of grappler. Is my only point.
Well, okay, but I also, I mean, I don't know. There might have been a couple double legs attempts. I don't remember specifically. I remember one of 9. I remember her being very smart and always circling back to the center of the cage and keeping her distance, which I think she's going to do here. Also, and one of the big developments we saw from her in the last fight, and something I think she's really found here, was that calf kick. I really like that from her. I want to see her keep using it. I also think, as I said, she's going to keep good distance. I think she has decent boxing in space. And Gadelha, I mean, the first thing is, which I don't think anybody mentioned, but if they did, forgive me. I was lobbying for my nickname in the chat. But look, she gets tired, and if you force her to wrestle and she can't finish, she's going to get tired here again. We remember her first strong round against Andrade. Before Andrade, I'm not saying to be clear that Nina Ansaroff is going to pour on the same kind of pressure that Jessica Andrade did. I'm just suggesting that I think her wrestling has a shelf life where she can only do it for so long before getting tired. I think that her combinations, Gadelha's, are basically counters, and they're pretty rote. I think that Ansaroff has some power, maybe not as much as Gadelha. I don't know if Gadelha is going to be as strong in the clinch relative to Nina Ansaroff as everybody thinks she is. She might be a little bit stronger, but I don't think it's going to be anything overwhelming. And look, I'm still picking Gadelha to win the fight, but I think Ansaroff is plenty live here. And I think it's going to have to be by decision, but I just don't see her getting subbed out. And I think she can stop takedowns, and even if she doesn't, you have to worry about Gadelha gassing. So the pick is still Gadelha because I think she's more seasoned and I think she's the better grappler. But I would say if you're making multi lineups, like, nobody's going to be on Ansaroff, and there's no reason for this line to be that wide.
Fair enough.
Somebody brought this up in chat. I don't remember. Didn't Marcos get Ansaroff's back in that fight? Somebody asked.
I can't recall.
I can't
at the
recall.
end of the first, she may have. At the end of the first,
I think that's right. And if it is, you better not end up there against Gadelha. That's a whole different world.
Well, we agree on that.
Yeah,
certainly.
Okay.
I got to respond to someone in chat who's trolling us. So I assume survival of the fittest.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I'm gonna call you out. Yeah, I'm gonna call him out. It's always interesting to hear and I just said I wasn't gonna respond to it, but then he said how many hours you guys spend on the mats. Listen, Schmo, I am actually relatively close to. Now, I probably shouldn't brag about it because it's not bragging, because most people would kick the crap out of me, but I'm getting close to getting my blue belt. So
there you go. See?
Why don't you stick it? And this is for fun. And if you don't like it, go ahead and we'll leave. And yeah, that's right, Zelda. Mats or mattresses. I play around on both. That being said, Thiago Santos, 8,800, taking on Jimi Poster Boy Manuwa at 7,400. Santos is the favorite. I actually was a little surprised at how wide this line was at first. And then the more I thought about it, the more it kind of made sense. Santos, minus 175. It's actually come down a little bit. It was around minus 220. Come back on Manuwa, plus 165. Look, this fight should be kill or be killed. That's how Manuwa fights. We saw Santos against Kevin Holland. He looked good. That guy can take a beating. We saw him against Eryk Anders. Obviously, we know how that one went. Manuwa, though, is a good matchup for him. He's a boxer. They're going to stand and trade. I like that big kick Santos throws. To me, this is a GPP fight. Somebody earlier in chat said that they're going to play Santos in cash. This fight is a little bit too risky for me to play cash, but I do like Santos overall. Manuwa was fading down on the stretch. He lost the decision to Jan Blachowicz. Got knocked out by Volkan Ozdemir, and another one of those weird, wonky fights. Before that, he did starch Corey Anderson. Ultimately, it's a stand-up fight. I always like the kickboxer over the boxer. Give me Thiago Santos, who's also in better form. But most of my lineups that I don't have Thiago Santos in GPP, I'll probably have Jimi Manuwa in. Beard, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Before we go, real quick, I just want to say that the argument that you've never done something so you can't comment on it is really stupid in general. It has nothing to do with the knowledge that you might have on a subject. If you look at different sports, you have guys that have never managed that make managers in Major League Baseball, pitching coaches. And I mean, it's just dumb in your everyday life. Like you argue about politics and the president, but you've never been the president, have you? You've never run for Senate. So it's just a dumb argument in general. And I just wanted to say that. And so now that I got that out of the way, I'm picking Manuwa in this fight.
Of course you are. Of course you're picking Jimi Manuwa in this fight.
I have to go into my well-reasoned. As you just heard, I'm very logical and well-reasoned when I say things. So I'm about to go here too. Those of you who are on Twitter would know that initially I put Santos by mistake, but then I saw that everybody else had Santos, so my contrarian instinct kicked in, and now I'm on Manuwa. No, but the actual is look, we've talked about it before. Santos doesn't deal with pressure, and Manuwa pressure. That's what he does. Even in that Eryk Anders fight, it's so funny that his game plan coming in there was to wrestle, because the wrestling would have been fine if you wanted to do it for like a round to try to wear him down. But he had moments in that fight where he was backing Santos up to the cage, landing strikes, and then going in for takedowns. I was screaming at my TV, keep striking. He had him in the situation that Branch had him in, and he's either not a confident enough striker to get it done, or he maybe felt like he couldn't, or maybe he actually couldn't. But in any event, that's not Jimi Manuwa. Jimi Manuwa is a very competent and confident striker. He's going to pressure Santos back. He's going to throw in combination, and everything he throws is going to be very hard. Santos has a chance to win every fight because just of how much of a tornado he can make it if you're not consistently pressuring him, and I wouldn't fade him entirely. We know the story of Santos, those ridiculous body kicks. But look, when you back him up, his defense is we've said it before, throw wild hooks, leave himself wide open to the counter shot. And Manuwa is a good enough boxer, more than a good enough boxer, to take advantage of that. And if Manuwa is going to be consistently pressuring, I'm going to have to take him to implement his game plan and get this done. So give me Jimi Manuwa on the discount for not just the upset, but a finish. I
am stunned. Be picking Jimi.
Wait, what did I say that didn't make sense?
No,
there?
I'm just stunned that you're picking Jimi Manuwa straight up. I get it as a hedge. Okay. I mean, agree to disagree, which I had this argument on Twitter today too. It's okay that we disagree. Me and Krista like each other. We can still be friends.
As I said on Twitter, our minds are still melding. It's in the.
When we get to JJ, and I can't believe that we're on the same side of that one. Anywho, Joe, waiting patiently.
Yeah. So, just to kind of add to the narrative, I'm pretty certain that like Awesome Mo and Chipotle Addict and A.E. Jones, they've never played professional sports before, but they've won millions of dollars in DFS. So that argument that none of us have spent any time on the mat is so not relevant here. I mean, you want to play me to a head-by-head, to a head-to-head in MMA, just name your stakes. I'll happily play you. With your mat experience, I'm sure you'll have a distinct advantage over me in MMA DFS. As it relates to this fight, I think one thing we all agree on is it is a fight to be targeted in GPPs. You have over a 5-to-1 finish prop. It's the highest on the slate to finish inside the distance. There is some James Tahuna narrative.
Oh, you and James Tahuna.
No, there is. There is.
Bridge, you and James Tahuna.
No, there is some James Tahuna narrative here. I mean, namely, and tell me if you disagree, Manuwa has been knocked out by better fighters than Santos is beaten, right? That's the fact, right? So what's good about this fight is, and why it's a great fight to target, is that Manuwa does one thing well. He hits with power, right? Santos does 1.5 to 2 things well. So I think it's a very interesting fight. I picked Santos for RotoWire. I think he's got a little bit more diverse skill set. But would I be surprised if Manuwa caught him? No. I mean, I'm going to have a fair amount of Manuwa here, especially at that price point. I mean, in GPPs, that opens up so much. And I will never forget that, you know, one of the greatest DFS nights of his life by our good friend, the Big Marley, was having Jimi Manuwa and it made the nuts lineup for him against Corey Anderson. So, you know, Manuwa does have that power in his hands. So I think this is a great fight to target. I think you should have exposure to both sides. I think Chris did a very good job in describing the technical aspects of this fight. So I'm not going to go over that again, but target this fight, play both sides in GPPs.
Yeah, see, Chris, I think that's more what I was looking for. Picking Santos, but Manuwa, you could say, is more alive than people think, et cetera, et cetera. I would have got there. Picking him straight up, agree, disagree. That being said, let's move on to a fight that I think is getting – this is where I'm going to be the anti-Chris here. I am anti-chalk dog here. Hakeem Dawodu, 8,600, taking on Kyle Bochniak, 7,600. Dawodu is minus 165, Bochniak plus 155. And what I mean by anti-Chris is he usually, you know, sees a chalk favorite and has to pick against them. Well, I see a chalk underdog and I have to pick against them. Everyone's high on Kyle Bochniak. I get that he's tough. He looked good against Zabit, but the guy should be 1-4 in the UFC. He got the decision against Henrique Barzola, and I still can't figure out how. His one win is over Brandon Davis. He got 3 takedowns and scored 62 points to win in that fight. He is a gritty fighter. He does not score well in his wins. I know Hakeem Dawodu in his UFC debut, he got choked out by Danny Henry, and he also didn't score great against Austin Arnett. Ultimately, I think he's the better prospect. I think he's faster, and Bochniak is going to want to kind of grind. I think he's going to have a hard time catching Dawodu. I've seen people are using MMA math with he looked good against the beat, and me and Joe were at that fight. That was phenomenal, a good performance. But this is a different fight. Dawodu's going to stick and move and just be quick. I'm not sure how well Dawodu scores, but he's going to be so underowned. I might take a shot or two on him. Ultimately, I think this fight plays out on the feet. I just don't know if Bochniak's going to be able to pull off that pressure style. Every time Arnett backed up Dawodu, he circled off the cage well, got out of trouble. If Bochniak's able to make it a grinding type of fight, sure, I think he could win. But then I don't think he scores well. I think Dawodu is more likely to get the win here. And with all the love I'm seeing for Bochniak, it makes me like him just a little in GPPs. Chris?
Well, our agreement is starting a little earlier than expected, because not only do I like Dawodu, but I like a lot of the same notes that you hit there. I saw a lot of talk on Twitter about Dawodu sucks, and I just don't know where that comes from, quite frankly.
I do.
Well, I mean, he's a quick, athletic guy. He's got power. He's good at defending strike. He was doing something in that fight against Arnett that I absolutely loved. When Arnett would throw that high kick and he would duck out of the way or like slide back and throw the leg kick, that was beautiful. So we know he's an athletic guy. We know he's got power in his hands. He throws in combinations. The one thing I will say to his detriment is that he can get hit by that right hand. We saw it in the Henry fight. That wasn't a one-off. That's happened before. He's sort of hittable like that. And look, Bochniak is gonna come forward, and I mean, we saw that weird style that he did in the Brandon Davis fight where he didn't come forward, but generally he comes forward and tries to throw in combination. And so I'm not saying he's not live against Dawodu, but as Sean said, I think Dawodu is the way better prospect. I think he has the way better tools, and if it's a firefight, I'm not saying that Bochniak has no chance, but I like Dawodu in that scenario, and I certainly like him in the technical scenario. So the pick is Dawodu. Sprinkle in some Bochniak if you feel it, but I don't think it's past Dawodu to get a finish here.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, I would not give that prospect tag to Dawodu. And as it relates to DraftKings, his nom de plume should be Doo-Doo, because he's not really been great on DraftKings. You know, he lost that fight to Derrick Henry. The UFC threw him a softball in Arnett, and he couldn't finish him. I haven't been overly impressed with what I've seen. I mean, he may be a good martial artist and athletic. I just don't know if he's an MMA fighter. Now, there's some narrative around Bochniak. I mean, as Sean referenced, me and him were at that fight, or him and I. And I thought it was common knowledge, but maybe not. Zabit either broke his hand early in that fight or severely damaged it.
Yeah, he did. I forgot to mention it.
Yeah, so, okay. Now with all that said, I'm still picking Bochniak. More as a fade against Dawodu. And just because I don't think he's that great a fighter, would it surprise me? I mean, look, Bochniak, he's got cardio for days. He doesn't throw at a high volume. I would be surprised if he could finish Dawodu. But look, I'm just going out on a little bit of an island here. I'm not overly impressed with Dawodu. I think there are many better options at his price point. I will probably be underexposed to him on DK and mass entry GPPs, which, look, is maybe a reason to play him. I'll have a few shares. I'll have a few shares of Bochniak. I don't love the fight for DraftKings. I could see it being a really low-scoring fight. Probably like 3 on my fade list. I think there are 2 other fights that maybe are slightly worse from a DraftKings perspective, but I'll pick Bochniak just because.
Can I just say before we finish, for people like Joe and Nandalal in chat who seem to have issues with the finishing. Now I know that the finish rates for regionals to professional to UFC doesn't always translate, but the guy's had 2 fights, so let's pump the brakes there. I just want to say 6 of 8 wins. He's got to finish. So the guy is a finisher.
Against who?
If you want to make an argument that it's not going to translate, that's fine. But I don't.
It hasn't translated.
Well, he lost one, so that doesn't count.
Right. Well, yeah, and he got finished.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You can't finish a fight, you lose.
Yeah, but how do you not finish Arnett, though? I mean, come on. It was a softball. I mean, it was in his own backyard.
I know. But he could have finished that fight anytime he wanted to.
Sandhagen finished Arnett. Sandhagen did it.
All right, hang on, time. I'm too busy arguing in chat. I gotta break this up because we have to talk about Gunnar Nelson.
Oh yeah, this is a very good fight.
Taking on Alex Oliveira at 7,800. This is me and Joe agreed. Other than the main event, the fight we're looking forward to the most. Gunny Nelson minus 140, Oliveira plus 130. Gunnar Nelson is ripped out of his freaking mind. Back at home in Iceland, no longer at SBG, so that's good for you, Joe.
It is.
Oliveira coming off of the just torching of Carlo Pietrasali Jr., which, I mean, I don't know why that was even a fight, but it was. Beat Carlos Condit before that, lost to Yancy Medeiros, and had that vicious knockout of Ryan LaFleur, which, by the way, I still can hear that uppercut. I was at that fight as well in Long Island. That was crazy. Anyway, this fight is interesting. Oliveira moves forward, pressure. Both these guys finish or get finished, it seems like. By the way, Gunnar Nelson most recently had his eye gouged out by Santiago Ponzinibbio. I will say, well, I think Ponzinibbio is a dirty fighter. The really bad one, I don't think it was intentional. I've seen him throw some shady stuff, but like the eye hook.
Grabbing his shorts?
that was no good. That was a foul. That was intentional. I'm saying the eye hook where he almost blinded Gunnar, I don't think that was intentional.
Anyway, I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. Oliveira moves forward. Oliveira, we've seen be taken down before. And he's been different fight, but he was subbed before, was triangled by the other cowboy, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Carlos Condit took him down in that fight, and if Gunnar Nelson can get him down, he's the better BJJ practitioner. The problem is Alex Oliveira, I think, is underrated in the feet. The dude hits hard. I've gone through another podcast. After you fight him, if you get in a war with him, it seems to change your career. You know, he basically retired. I can't remember his name now. Of course, it's James Mutashri. Basically retired him. You know, Will Brooks, I think, took him down in that fight before Oliveira got him out of there. Ultimately, I like this fight to finish. I'm leaning Gunnar Nelson. I think this fight at some point finds its way to the mat. I think even Oliveira at his best will clinch up, and that just gives Nelson a shot. I am not overly confident in this fight, but I do think it finishes. I think it's a really good GPP fight. Give me Gunnar Nelson. Joe, what do you got?
So there's so much compelling narrative around this fight. I mean, I've made it widely known that what I like to do as soon as salaries drop is create a lineup real quick, just off the top of my head, see what that lineup looks like. So the first lineup that I created had Cowboy Oliveira in it. And then as the week kind of went on, I started thinking about, okay, I really like that Gunnar is training at the super camp in Iceland. I'm not too thrilled about the fact that he had some issues with his knee surgery. I don't like the fact that he's taken a year and a half off. I do like the fact that, aside from, Damian Maia in his prime, that, Gunnar might have some of the best jiu-jitsu, in the weight class. Cowboy is a fun fighter, a great fighter on his feet, prone to gas. If this goes into the deeper rounds, give it to Gunnar. So I find this a very interesting fight to target. I mean, I wouldn't fault anyone for, taking the price savings and playing Oliveira, but things have pretty much shifted for me. I'm now I have more of a lean towards Gunnar Nelson, to win the fight, given the concerns I mentioned, the year and a half off, the knee issues, the fact that Cowboy's been way more active. He has to be, having 3 kids with 3 different women who all live on the same block as he does. He's got to continue to fight. So yeah, I am going to go to Gunnar, but I think this is a great fight to target.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree. It's a great fight to target. Cowboy Oliveira, one of my favorite fighters in general. I just love how the dude fights. He always goes to war, and he always looks like he's having a great time. As far as the fight goes, I mean, look, when I watching tape for this fight and watching the Yancy Medeiros deserves a medal for being able to get out of that first round. I still don't even know how he did it. I think that Oliveira was expecting to finish him and didn't, and maybe that, going into later rounds kind of messed it up. But my point is that, Oliveira is a guy who just keeps coming at you. Even if Gunnar Nelson gets takedowns, we've seen others get takedowns, as you mentioned, Carlos Condit. Not to mention a really good wrestler grappler in Ryan LaFleur. These guys couldn't get anything done. In fact, it was Oliveira who got up off the deck and ended up finishing both of those guys. I just think he's freakishly athletic. He uses his length and his strength to full effect. He can wrestle. He can grapple. I wouldn't expect him to out-grapple Gunnar Nelson, but if he wants to get offensive takedowns, I wouldn't put that past him. And the biggest thing that I say for last year is that Gunnar Nelson's just really hittable. I mean, he's got that Conor McGregor style where he keeps his hands down and goes in and out. But the thing about that is you've got to have Conor McGregor head movement to make that work. And even Conor McGregor gets hit quite a bit just because you can't be keeping your hands down at these high levels like this. For all you want to say about the eye pokes and the shorts grab, and there was some dirty stuff in that fight, no question. It was a very clean overhand that stunned Gunnar Nelson initially. So I just can't trust him to look. If you were just gonna wrestle the entire fight and just try to mug him, that would be one thing. But I don't think I can trust Gunnar Nelson on the feet. Can he explode into some counters and maybe hurt Cowboy? Maybe, but I don't trust him to land something that hard on Cowboy to significantly change the fight. And I don't think the grappling on its own is going to get it done. So I'm going to pick Oliveira here to probably get a stoppage.
Some really good points, but I think it sums it up really well. The guys in chat, I actually want to read this because I think it sums it up really quick, really well. Our boy Will says if Condit can take him down, can take Oliveira, so can Gunnar. I think that's fair.
Yeah, no, that's
talking about the striking. Gunnar, the overhand, it won't stun Cowboy like it stunned Joban. Absolutely. Like Gunny's striking kind of improved, but not really. I think that's what it comes down to. Oliveira needs it on the feet. Gunny needs it on the ground. I think Gunny can get it down there, so I'm picking him. But as Chris said, if he eats enough shots on the way in, Oliveira wins. So I think it's a great GPP fight. For what it's worth, I'm not full disclosure, I'm not a tout better. I do bet on the side, and I post those just for free because I like to do it. Better at DraftKings, but I did bet the under 1.5 in this fight. I think it was like plus 100. If you're if you're into that. Anyway, Valentina Shevchenko, 9,400, taking on Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I'm going to call her Joanna Violence the rest of this podcast for 6,800. To me, we can argue about this all day long. This line is 100% out of its freaking mind. It's now at Valentina Shevchenko minus 315. The comeback on Joanna Violence plus 285. Look, you can yell at me all you want that she beat her years ago when they, I think 3 times when they were doing Muay Thai. Great. This is MMA. I get that. I'm not even going to argue with you that Valentina should be the favorite. She's going to have a size advantage, although I think it's good for JJ that she's going to cut all that massive weight, which a lot of me is what attributing that Namajunas knockout to. Let's get the sheesh chinny thing out of here. They're 125-pound women. Let's not expect a flash KO. Shevchenko is a counter striker, and JJ pushes the pace. If this goes 5 rounds, like I think it should, and the odds would indicate, in a decision, JJ being the volume striker is absolutely live to steal 3 rounds. 100%. Valentina Shevchenko could do more damage and counter her up, and if you get good enough judges, she could win 50-45. I just think this fight is way too wide. Expect to go the distance. Give me JJ in cash. Even if she loses, I'll take my 30 points and move on. I really think it helps her bumping up a weight class, as I mentioned. Shevchenko has shown some flashes of a ground game, but she wants to stand and trade. Like, they're going to stand up. They're going to basically have a Muay Thai match with MMA gloves. And while we've seen that, this is 5 rounds of pressure and the way MMA is scored. I just think Joanna is live absolutely more than this price tag would indicate. And by the way, the worst thing about Shevchenko possibly winning is listening to her fans. And that could be why I soured on her a little bit. A couple things I want to throw out there. A neck roll, those videos you see, not impressive. Anybody who's ever wrestled can do that. 100%. If I wasn't so old, I could still do it. And I probably still could. It would just hurt a lot. The drill with her sister, it's a standard drill, guys. Like, I don't know where this height, and she dances.
That's a big one for me. That actually changes it for me.
And it's sad because she is a really good fighter, and all those things just irritate me. I have to check some of my biases. But minus 315 to me is crazy. So Joe said that Chris can go first for these fights, so I'll start with Chris.
Well, yeah, I have zero understanding of why so many people are thinking that 3 fights years ago in a different discipline hold any weight here whatsoever. They don't. Even if it were the same discipline, I mean, look, Sean, you're a tennis guy, right? So if you see head-to-head matchups that are more than 3 or 4 years old, you don't even look at them pretty much. They're different people at that point. And we're talking about a different discipline. And not that I'm a Muay Thai specialist or anything, but look, Muay Thai, then the reason why you always hear announcers say it, there's not a lot of footwork involved. They stand in front of each other. For the most, I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying that. Some Muay Thai guy can call me an idiot in the chat. If survival of the fittest is still here, get on that. But
what I will say, by the way, I just a good point to jump in. I will concede that Joanna is delusional as all hell as well. Like, if she wins, she's the GOAT, and all that's why she lost. Excuses. She's crazy too. I'll put that out there.
But I think most fighters are like that, and I think in a certain way you have to be. You have to believe you're going to be the best, because then what's the point of getting out of bed if you're not? So there's a little bit of back and forth on that. But what I'll say is, like, I really take your point that Joanna could just outwork her here. She's going to be the quicker fighter, but I'll go a little further than that even and say that, guys, this is a 3-round fight, and Shevchenko. I'm sorry, 5 rounds. Okay, but
for the title.
You're right. But the point still stands that she's made some improvements, but she is still a very slow starter. You want look at the first round against Nunes the second time. First round against Holly Holm. She is a notoriously slow starter, and Joanna is not the kind of person you want to be down 1 or 2 rounds against, even in a 5-round fight. It's just not the way to go. And what do people actually think is going to happen here? Like you said, Sean, do they think that she's going to get knocked out? I mean, I really don't see that happening. She's at her weight class now. She's feeling good. She didn't have to cut. She didn't have to dehydrate.
She wants to go back down because she's a lunatic. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, for now, like, and even at the weigh-in, she was talking about, and I did catch that too. Actually, they both said it at the weigh-ins. They both said how powerful they feel and whatever. But I just don't. I mean, unless she wants to try to get her takedown game going, Shevchenko, and even if she does, we've seen Joanna have great takedown defense before. We know that Shevchenko is a bullet counter striker. I didn't even do that on purpose, by the way. It just happened. She's a bullet counter striker. That's how she beat Holly Holm. She put on a great display there. But I just think that Joanna is going to be faster. She's going to have a better work rate, and she's going to pick her apart for 5 rounds. So I'm taking Joanna here. And I think the line is silly too. I think it's way off, and I think I'm going to be way heavy on Joanna.
I don't know. See, it's hard for me to go crazy on Joanna because I still would probably lean Shevchenko. I did put a small bet on JJ because the line is crazy and there's value, but it's hard for me to go overweight on Joanna unless I was confident she's going to win. So that being said, like that's why I don't want to go crazy overexposed. Joe?
So, okay, so I am pretty heavy on Val here, and not for any of the reasons that, she beat Joanna in Muay Thai, years ago. I honestly feel that Val will actually take her down, and I might as well give my hot take because I don't think I can say this without it being a hot take. I believe that Val will get a finish here by submission. So I'm going to pick Valentina Shevchenko by submission. I am not going to call around here. I do think that Val.
I think she got the takedown, huh?
Yeah, I do think. I don't know that Val is great for DraftKings. I mean, I could see the submission coming in the later rounds. I think there might be better plays on DraftKings. I also would not bet the fight at necessarily at -300. I think it's a pretty big number. Look, I love JJ. I think she's one of the most precision strikers, at 115. I just like what I've seen recently from Val, from the submission of Julia Pena. Obviously, we can't put anything, we can't place anything on her fight where she beat the living shit out of that.
No, that was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, that was like that ref should be fired. That fight should have been stopped.
That was Yamasaki.
Yeah, basically fired, wasn't it?
Yeah,
to the extent they can do
you
that.
think is she going to shoot a takedown? Like she's going to go with that?
I think she will take down Joanna.
Interesting.
Others have Gadelha. Look, I think she'll get a takedown here. So I am on Val here. I want Val to win this so that Andrade could, beat Rose and then have a super fight at 125, and she won't have to sell brownies anymore at training camp to raise money. So I am. I'm hoping that I'm playing Val here. I don't know. Look, I could even see potentially stacking this fight in cash. There are people that are throwing out the dub stack. This in the main event. I can certainly see that. I think in some respects it might be more stackable than the main event, especially if there's a quick finish. But I am picking Val here.
All right,
go
ahead.
One thing I want to say real quick. Since the linchpin of your pick was wrestling, I mean, I don't know. She's faced a lot of good wrestlers. Can you recall any significant top control from any of those wrestlers?
Gadelha won around decisively.
Okay, all right, yeah, Gadelha. But I mean, I think that's one, and I'm okay. Fair
I don't
enough.
know if it's the linchpin of my, but
got him twice.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on. Max Blessed Holloway, 8,300, taking on Brian T. City Ortega at 7,900. Where is this line? You can now get plus money on Max Holloway on 5 times. Minus 110 for Ortega, plus 100 for Holloway. I'm going to wait because we'll see how stupid this line gets. I like Holloway here. people are basing this on the health thing. We don't really know, and that is a concern. I will say I'm probably stacking in cash because Holloway brings fights, and Ortega's been a willing dance partner in his fights. I think this fight scores well. If it finishes, I'll take my win on either side. Holloway, is on 10 fight winning streak, has not been taken down in the longest time. How can Ortega get this fight to the ground? The way he usually, which is interesting, the way he got Moicano to shoot is Ortega typically presses forward, gets pressure, and makes you shoot a stupid shot and snatches up your neck. Mm-hmm. That's what we've seen him do. I think Holloway's footwork and movement is going to be too good. He should be too good on the feet. The problem is Ortega finds ways to win, but that is also why I can't pick him. I can't pick a guy who routinely falls behind in fights. I know he beat Cub Swanson decisively, good win, and same with Frankie Edgar. But before that, he was losing to Clay Guida, got a submission. He was losing to Renato Moicano, got a submission. And ultimately, Cub and Frankie aren't the strikers that Max is. People are forgetting who Max is. And you have to assume he's coming back healthy. That is, of course, the big if here. And if you want to pick T-City, I can get it. You really think Max Holloway is compromised, not the same. Looked fine. He always looks drawn out. Looked fine on the scales for what he was. I actually thought side-by-side picture, Ortega looked worse. Give me Holloway to win here. I will say that where this fight is priced, I'm probably going to have a ton of both shares and GPPs. But give me Holloway until I've seen him slow down in the cage. I can only base things on what my eyes see clearly. So give me Holloway to win. We're going to go, my guess or prediction, 4th round TKO from Max Holloway. Chris, start us off with the main event.
All right. Well, like you said and how you started, you can't talk about this fight without hitting the injury or suspected injury angle. I'll go quick since you basically summed up my thoughts on that part. I think it's way too much under a microscope now, like where people are trying to take comments he made in interviews where he stumbled over his words maybe, and they're going, see, I mean,
he's
look,
a fighter. Like, let's be like the
no,
fighters guy.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he's not gonna. He's always sort of had that laid back draw kind of speech anyway. But whatever. I just think, and also, like, guys, didn't we learn from the Ngannou fight? I mean, you can't assume that much going into the cage. Could it be the case? Sure, but just constructing that narrative and running with it, I think, is dangerous. Skills win fights. We don't have any real knowledge of an injury. Just go by the skills. Okay. Having said that, I think the gap on the feet is just so big, and I don't think I'm saying anything that is news to anybody specifically. It's not that Ortega's on the feet hasn't gotten any better. He does. But, I mean, if you just want to look at something very basic, like look at Brian Ortega's jab and then look at Max Holloway's jab. Brian Ortega's jab is a paw-out jab. It's kind of just like he throws. The Max Holloway jab, and we saw this in the Jose Aldo fight, is a stinging jab. It is thrown for a purpose. That is indicative of the levels of strikers that they are. I mean, T-City's striking is functional as a means to survive in the fight and maybe score some points. Max Holloway is a striker. He's got a good kicking game. He's got power for the division. He plays with tempo a lot. I just think he's so smart in there. Now, the one thing I will say about Ortega is he doesn't have to get you to shoot. Like, he doesn't get takedowns, but he doesn't have to get you to shoot either. If you remember in that Cub Swanson fight, he can wrap you up and then get something on the feet and then take you down from there, which I think is a good it's a good adjustment from him, and it makes him even more dangerous. Even still, though, I think Max's movement is just too good to be caught in a grappling scenario if he doesn't want to be. And I think he's going to keep this on the feet and pepper him over 5 rounds and get a nice meaty decision.
Did you say meaty decision?
Big meaty decision.
Oh, that makes me want to just dry heave. Oh,
big meaty juicy decision.
Okay, so for those of you that may have tuned in to Alpha earlier, well, first of all, thank you. But secondly, go going to say a lot of what I said about this fight on Alpha. I think the only way that you could be highly confident in Ortega, there's two reasons. One is you truly believe that Max Holloway is diminished by whatever random mystery illness affected him, caused him to. He's never been a wordsmith to begin with, but you have to believe either that he is vastly diminished or that Ortega has geometrically / exponentially improved his striking, overnight. Those are the only two. Those are the only two reasons you could be highly confident. Now, I'm not saying.
But you do know that, as Will would say in chat, that striking he's improved on, it is clearly just an extension of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Well,
like,
okay.
You know that, right?
So I'll buy into that. So
sorry,
I'm not saying that Ortega can't win. I'm just saying that for those people who are like so confident in Ortega, those are the only two scenarios under which I could see a high level of confidence in Ortega. I mean, Max has fought the who's who at 145. Max is clearly a superior striker. He's faster on his feet. He's got high fight IQ. He's not easy to take down. So again, look, I like Max here. I mean, I am not buying into the diminished narrative. I mean, if and I'm going to have shares of Ortega because we've seen Ortega snatch victory from the jaws of defeat on many occasions. So I will have shares of Ortega. I think it's smart to have shares of both fighters, but picking a winner, I think he's got a great price point. The winner is Max Holloway.
All right, let's move on to hot takes. I'm going to explain hot takes because it seems like we have some new people watching this week. We're up to 20,000 live viewers.
Wow.
If you're not in live chat, you're not going to understand what's going on with that one. We're doing all right. Hot take: we are going out on a limb here. Nothing, Joe. This is for you. We're going out on limbs with these. And these DraftKings specific, a bold prediction. Obviously, that is what a hot take is. Chris, you are actually Joe. We already.
I gave you mine. I gave you mine.
We have his,
go ahead and restate.
I'll restate it. It's Valentina Shevchenko by submission.
Chris, you have your hot take ready?
I have it all ready. Now on
it.
this card, we have 3 fighters below the $7,000 pay line. I think 2 of those 3 fighters are getting a W.
Wow.
Well, then you better be picking Devin Clark because I can't.
No, she's picking what? Nina Ansaroff and.
I'm saying the take is any 2. I get it. If any 2 get it, that's my hot take.
That's a hot take. That's a hot enough take. Yeah, I can allow that.
That is. I want to say meaty hot, but that's just disgusting.
So meaty and
chewy.
It's
the other adjective or descriptive adjective that he used was plenty. So that could be plenty hot. I heard him use plenty today.
Plenty meaty.
Not a word that I use a lot, plenty, but we can let him use plenty.
All right, we are. My hot take is going to be.
Wow.
I'm gonna get really. I'm just gonna get specific with mine. So you guys can video this. The winner of and I'll give you a thought of how I'm thinking for GPPs. The winner of the following 3 fights: Nelson Oliveira, Holloway Ortega, and Santos Manuwa. All 3 of them end up on the winning GPP lineup in the $8 tournament.
The optimal lineup in the $10.
In the $10 this week.
I'm gonna allow that just because of how specific it is.
Yeah,
that's
those are finishing fights, so
And okay, if you want me to get real out there, which is fun, so why not?
Give a 4th fight.
Yeah.
No. Let's we will say, you know what? I'm not even playing her, but
Ansaroff?
No. I was gonna say Kieran Chookagian does something, but I can't even get behind it.
All right, we'll let you go. Don't worry about
it. No, I'm gonna pull this off. Let's go with let's just do that then. We'll say Katlyn Chookagian outscores
Theodorou?
Outscores Dawodu and Theodorou and Anderson.
Oh my God!
Wow! Now that is a hot take.
We pushed him over the edge.
We certainly did, man.
I still not going to play like any of them because I said it may be Anders, but
Wow.
there you go. There's your hot take.
That is hot. That is hot, Holmes.
Yeah, somebody said in the chat said Chookagian by head kick KO. All right.
Chookagian by submission. There you go. Blonde ambition.
Guys, this was fun. Chat, for the most part, was fun. We had, a little troublemaker in there, but it's actually fun. We kind of came together.
Look, continue to watch.
He did point out some things, I will say, as much as we were ragging on you, survival of the fittest. Some good points in there. It was fun. Not taking anything too seriously. We're here to have fun and enjoy this. Make some money on DraftKings. You guys got any final thoughts?
Just sneaky good card next week in Milwaukee. Really, sneaky good card.
Yeah, I just started digging into that last week.
Yeah.
By last week, I meant yesterday. Clearly, I'm tired. Chris, you got anything else?
I just enjoy this card. This is going to be, we're a little dry in certain spots in the front, but the middle to the end is very good. Very
meaty is the word you want to use.
I'm not saying the word. It's going to be very fun. There's a lot of potential for a lot of finishes, a lot of potential for some good DraftKings scores. So enjoy the fights.
All right, guys, I got one for you real quick, and this is to everybody watching live. Don't sign off just yet. Stick with me. We're going to say real quick, we have to shout out RotoWire, rotowire.com/free, 10-day free trial to all their usually premium content. It is just meaty with all the information they have in there. Make sure and check it out. Get yourself prepared. Thanks for joining us in Fight IQ. We'll see you next week for UFC Milwaukee. Good luck in your contest. We'll see you next week.
Howdy.